Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Episode 3 of Skeleton Crew is out, and it's titled Very Interesting as an Astrogation Problem. And so let's discuss what I thought about this episode. For individuals who haven't seen this show yet, let's do a quick no-spoiler review first. I was talking to my editor, Congo, about Skeleton Crew, and I asked him what he thinks. And he basically said something along the lines of, I respect it for what it is. And that kind of sums up what I think a lot of people will think about the show, and episode 3 really solidifies that feeling of what Skeleton Crew is like. I do have to mention it's hard to review episodes of a show like this on a weekly basis, because you're really just being fed small chunks of the story. Star Wars TV shows, especially these 8-episode mini-series, are basically movies cut up into small pieces. And so unlike in Andor, where you get these more confined 3-episode arcs that are neatly kind of tied off at the end of each episode, with these 8-episode miniseries, we're essentially building up things throughout the entire season without seeing much payoff until the very end. And that in itself is not the problem. The problem is these 8-episode series end up being the equivalent of like a 3 to 4 hour movie. And so we're kind of in this weird space where each of the individual episodes might feel a little too short, like nothing really happens, or right as things are about to get a little bit spicy, things are cut off. And at the same time, if you watch these shows as a whole in their 3 to 4 hour full running time, then things kind of feel a little dragged out, like the pacing seems a little weird. It's almost like they're milking these shows, and they're like twice as long as they should be. Like that episode in Ahsoka where it's just a flashback to the Clone Wars, while cool, is a great example of just milking things. Now, so far, Skeleton Crew, if you take a look at each individual episode, has really good pacing within the episodes themselves. Everything is very tight, but at the same time, while these episodes are like rides and they take you from one attraction to another and you see a lot of cool stuff, you kind of have to ask yourself, is there a deeper meaning here? Are we connected to a more interesting, larger story? We just don't know yet. And episode 3 is just a lot more of this. I mean, it was just a really fun episode, but again, not much happens from the story development point of view. And so, like, as you can tell, I'm not really a big fan of the 8-episode miniseries. I think it's a weird kind of format. And again, sorry I always mention Andor, but I love it so much. And in hindsight, those 3-episode story arcs were actually a great idea. Because this show, the first season, was more like 3 or 4 really solid and tight movies with minimum fluff. And although the middle episodes in each one of these 3 story arcs suffered because they're kind of slower and no one can really wait a week anymore for stuff, just kind of sad. Overall, the pacing, while methodical, really was fine because everything we saw on screen had a purpose and was deliberate. It's hard to say where Skeleton Crew will fall on the spectrum of are they jerking us around or is there actually a meaningful story here. But I do have to say, like, from what we've seen so far, the mechanics are really tight. All of the more technical aspects of the film are excellent. Everything is at least above average to really good, which for Star Wars is, that's good. It's in the right direction. We've had some pretty wonky TV series of late in the last few years. And so for fans who aren't sure whether they should watch this show, I would say that if you like Goonies, Stranger Things, that kind of vibe, and that level of seriousness, or if you just really like a solid, well-made Star Wars show that has a pirate theme, I would say check it out. If you don't have a subscription for Disney Plus and you're waiting for a later show like Andor, I would just wait until Andor before watching this show. While it's good, I don't think you should. I think most people shouldn't get the yearly subscription for Disney Plus. I think it's way too overpriced, and they don't have enough good content out there, unless you are like someone who has kids and you want to, watch all the old Disney classics. And so while Skeleton Crew is growing on me a lot, I think this might be a show that's better digested in just one sitting. It's one of those shows that starts off with an interesting mystery, and then they kind of slow drip clues and hints to keep you engaged. Okay. Now we're going to have spoilers, and we're going to discuss and do a more complete review of Episode 3. The mystery of Adatin, the treasure planet that our 4 main characters are from, continues to grow. And while not much happens in this episode, we do get some information here. For instance, the kids leaving the planet was a big no-no. They screwed up. They actually broke planet-wide protocol by bashing their way through the barrier. This is a physical kind of gate of sorts that keeps all traffic from leaving or entering Adatin. We later find out that this gate is most likely a nebula. So this is a planet inside of a nebula cloud like Umbara. We also learn that during the Old Republic era, the central government hides away several planets that they considered wonders because of, I guess, what's on them. And they do this for their protection, but most of these worlds were destroyed except for Adatin. And so this is where like kind of the mystery and legend of Adatin builds. And I really like this because I think one of the most underutilized aspects of Star Wars is the Old Republic period. I mean, when I was growing up, as far as legends went, Old Republic was where it was at. I mean, it was just a much grittier, darker version of Star Wars. If you like war, conflict, large battles, this is the stuff you were into. And it wasn't just like regular conflict. We're talking about conflicts where the Jedi and Sith would battle each other in massive battlefields. Just epic stuff. As much as I like the duels we see in the Skywalker trilogy, I also want to see hundreds of Force users doing crazy things on the battlefield against each other. I mean, just from a visual point of view alone, it would be incredible to see this on screen, like a Sith warlock using battle meditation to send thousands of thralls at the enemy lines, which is mostly Jedi trying to protect the children that they shouldn't have brought to the battlefield in the first place. Like, who are the bad guys? The evil wizards who use every tool available to defeat their enemies, or the guys who talk about morality all the time but bring children on the battlefield, and then kind of handicap them by not letting them use their powers, to their fullest. But yeah, that kind of stuff. I want to see it. I like that this little bit of lore also seems to hint towards some greater calamity that's destroyed several planets.
Planets of wonders kept hidden for their protection. Long ago, they were all destroyed, except for one.
Perhaps this was caused by some ancient conflict that might even eclipse the Galactic Civil War or Clone Wars. Again, these are conflicts with a lot of Force users, so you can see how destructive that might be. And also, this really fits in well with the pirate genre, ancient battles, ancient conflicts.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name? The pirate guy. One-Eyed Willie.
One-Eyed Willie. Yeah, he was the most famous pirate in his time.
I will be taking a closer look at this map we have here, see if I can brush up on my Arabesh a little bit and get to the bottom of what this thing says. If I don't make a video about it, it just means it's probably meaningless gobbledygook. Now, I do have to say, I hope that Adatin does get a bit darker and more dystopian as these parents desperately try to find their kids. The supervisor, who I think might be an Old Republic-era droid, who's kind of like, it's kind of like those separatist holdouts, after Galactic Civil War. These people think that the Republic is still around, but it's not really the Republic, it's the New Republic. But anyway, yeah, this droid, the supervisor, whatever, is keeping all of these people under control. And that, of course, creates that tension and conflict, especially because these parents are after their kids. And more importantly, it seems like the people on this planet have no idea what's going on in the wider world.
In school we learned about Coruscant and Alderaan.
Alderaan? Missed the war, did you?
I love lines like this. It's good characterization, but it's also a great callback to the lore in a very fluid way. We all, of course, remember what happened to Alderaan after that tragic mining incident. Never forget. This episode especially had a lot of moments like this. Anyway, these kids, these grown-ups, they're in a Truman Show-like situation where they know about the outer world, but they've never actually been outside. And so the question is, why are they so obedient? Are they brainwashed into thinking that everything outside in the wider galaxy is dangerous? I mean, if you think about it, that's not even brainwashing because it's kind of true. It is a dangerous galaxy out there, and this planet avoided 2 major wars. Or could it just be that these people have pride in their work, their great work, in preserving whatever, treasures are hiding on this planet, and so these people choose to self-isolate? We just don't know. I know this is a kid's show, so you shouldn't be expecting too many messed up things to happen, but, Stranger Things had some pretty crazy things, like kids getting experimented on. Kind of like in The Bad Batch in the 3rd season, now that I think about it. I hope they take this show into a more darker direction. I do have a daughter that I want to watch the show with one day when she grows up a little bit. And, I believe the best kid shows are the ones that don't baby the audience, right? Like, I remember when I was 9, my parents took me to see Life is Beautiful. If you know anything about that movie, it severely messed me up, but it also, kind of shaped me into the person I am now. And, it impacted me a lot. Because when you're younger, when you see these kind of extreme stories and movies that have meaning, those lessons stick with you for a lot longer time than whatever you learn when you're an adult, I think. And a week before that, my parents made me see the film What Dreams May Come, and that just traumatized me. There were no lessons learned whatsoever. This is a movie where Robin Williams plays a family man who's entire family dies in a tragic way, and so he literally descends into hell, into Dante Inferno's version of hell to save his wife, who's suicided herself. And there's this like really out-of-pocket moment where Robin Williams runs into his kid who's white when he's alive, but he has like the soul of Cuba Gooding Jr. But yeah, I really like these kind of movies and stories that can hook children in, but then deliver some social commentary, some more impactful messages. Because I feel like if you treat kids stupid, they might turn out to be stupid. I don't know how accurate that is. But yeah, like I generally really hate like dumbed down things specifically made for kids. Like I don't even like it when my wife plays kids music to my child. I'd rather have her listen to like Radiohead or Red Hot Chili Peppers, maybe a little Creedence. Now, all the show's major twists, like Jude Law being the pirate captain from the first episode, who's actually after the treasure, are really easy to figure out. And this is probably so that the younger audience can kind of figure it out themselves. But the core mystery of what Ad-Aten is still kind of intact, and I think that's what's kind of keeping me hooked to what's going on. And more importantly, a lot of the mechanics, the writing, are really tight here. This feels a lot less like a fan movie. And I have to say, like, a lot of Dave Filoni TV shows kind of feel like fan films sometimes. Skeleton Crew just feels professional. They don't worship the lore and content in, like, kind of cringy ways. As a matter of fact, they're kind of flippant, which I like. The callbacks and fan service, they are garnishes. They're not the central meal. The storytelling itself, the Skeleton Crew story, is the central meal. Again, this is a sign of a experienced writing and directing team. For example, there's a lot of show don't tell here. So the character development is natural. There's no like jerky dialogue or weird exposition that we've seen in a few of the recent Star Wars TV shows. You know, if the characters just literally start talking about how they feel, that's a sign of really shitty writing, guys. It shouldn't be that obvious, right? And it doesn't have to be hidden. Like, character motives don't need to be completely hidden. Actually, the characters in the show are quite simple. But it should be really natural the way we learn about them. You know, it should be through action. It should be through smart dialogue. And Skeleton Crew does this in excess. Whether it's Wim and Neil being idiots all the time.
What are you doing?
We're playing.
It's a cargo lift.
Answer or be vaporized. Who do you have a crush on at school?
Rena!
Or KB and Fern being a lot sharper and on top of things. And even if they are a bit more mature, because let's be honest, girls are more mature at the age than guys are, these two children are still allowed to be kids.
Time to get some sleep.
But I'm not even tired.
Which makes them really likable. Like, you just want to root for them. You want them to be okay. You want them to be protected against the nasty pirates. And Jude Law, not surprisingly, is terrific in this show. I really like the scene where Jude Law's character is just kind of looting some dead skeletons for clothing. It's not exactly Luther Royale getting ready to play the shopkeeper. But this scene works. I mean, this tells us that Jude Law is kind of scum. He's used to death. He's not above looting dead bodies, even fellow pirates. And yeah, that teaches us who he is as a character. I also really like his twist on old Jedi proverbs.
I waited. The Force provided.
I guess KB's got the Force too.
The Force flows through us all. Second, that's not a Jedi thing. The Jedi say.
This is just my type of character. Even SM-33, the old janky robot, is starting to grow on me. His distrust of Jude Law makes him almost parental. There's also a lot of little things they get right in this show. Like, I really like how the aliens are portrayed. I don't actually like the aliens themselves, death to Xenos, but the way they bring these characters alive, whether it's the rat cook, who's clearly from Galactic New Jersey, aka Corellia, or Kim, who, despite featuring some very Harry Potter-esque qualities, Star Wars and Harry Potter really just needs to get a room at this point. I appreciate the puppetry mixed with the CGI. Kim is another welcome addition to a very special class of Star Wars characters. I like to call them the Wise Advisors. She's literally an owl creature thingy. And she's kind of a mix between Maz Kanata and, dare I say, Yoda. And as is fitting for a pirate story, everyone in the story that is not these children are kind of sketchy and on the other side of the law. And the children's naivete in this world, paired with just the loose morals of Jude Law's character, creates some really excellent moments, like when he sends these kids into the ball turret on the starship and asks them to shoot at cops with lethal lasers. I mean, not only is this like attempted murder of a peacekeeping officer, probably minimum sentence of 15 years, this is also an extremely dangerous job. I mean, just ask World War II bomber crews what it was like to be in those turrets. It wasn't good. But, you know, no Star Wars film or story is really complete until you have adults putting children into dangerous situations and having them fight their battles for them. In some ways, like, this show doesn't always feel like it's Star Wars, but when I see things like that, I'm like, yeah, this is Star Wars. Child soldiers, war crimes, let's do it. But yeah, episode 3 is a lot of fun. There's some light character development. There's a little less story development, which I think is still okay. I hope it doesn't drag on to the next episode. I hope we see some more concrete things happen in that episode. You know, this is ultimately just a Disney theme park ride in the best way possible. And this is a show that's really built for kids and has enough going on that I think it's also interesting for adults that are children at heart or want to share a special franchise with their kids. This is a great way, I think, to enter Star Wars for the next generation. Well, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below about episode 3. As usual, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below. My name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.